确见家部归见罗上，舍大戒宝内的学说，断解南嘎拉三的本的，切知拉玛耶别宗嘎拉，大罗德别舍那行着，担保戒指给要修说。世界军官家为罗着，街上那边研究历史，差别北京拉面这边，同的这边等等老家，业务学院那座没多，这些都别南山这家。为啥一直去人家？是那行着前来去吧，看些同面对你啥吧，另外一说每个季节，天把东把兄弟没得，宁年就把长辈说说。宁面对的忙的着不了，世界旁边等着等月，公布决议拉进这把，大家上班谈，其实那么当把钱呢，社会看了见证真诚。其他上边的这什么，上边去年下瓦阿多，南大越是引来行吧，送着过了恰多民啊，他们拿我说过热的，西的帮助民农点吧。他说今年上边给我，电当着我滚了扛边，贴不了旗帜路上，电边宁波人多设计，明明这边得进今日，前面前边王国张边。对不马六中子，看见黑白走进中港，路上朝北小木老说话，妹妹这边得进今日，前面前边王国张边，对不马六中子。看见开边走进中国，路上朝北小老说话，明明这边得见今日，前面前边王伯江边，对我马六中在上月，看见开边走进。路上朝北上了说话，旁边这位喇嘛人不，他说几乎了本地的说，高的前边国内结束，故送途径我住人多，旁边这位喇嘛人。他说：“宁可了本地的说，高的前边国内，桥到推木我住人多，旁边这位喇嘛人不。他说：宁可了本地的说，高的前边国内，抢救宁边把两把了。”哎呦，马上准备写了跑路，马街忙个难给我，说让你一切自由，就算你， chaze lo deya tha gade gade para samgade bodhe yeso ha deya tha gade gade para samgade bodhe yeso ha deya tha gade gade para samgade bodhe yeso ha gere tongda jaju chewa mede nebe jendan jewa dan tenpa roshi bezo chojo tashi yo so shi be ni jo Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of benefiting all other sentient beings. And with that kind of contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this discourse. So the topic that we have is, to do with enlightened bodies or kayas. Are there three types of enlightened bodies? There are four enlightened bodies, all of which we could actualize through the practices of six perfections, paramitas, from the Dan paramita, perfection of generosity, to the Gyan paramita, perfection of wisdom, and also practicing what is called the four ways of gathering sentient beings and helping to ripen their mind streams.
ing number the dene, the dendroje, sha, younger and David, Naranjin Namdatan. Nyambu Lubu, Jimata, what is she? No? Lubunado, Shai, you can when you go. You know, you go, she there, she did the Sigmatar to go. Is so good there. Shena is young, so Mango. Lunguna good on by Lunguna good on by dance. Jin took away is in it, because Lunguna good on by Jimmy, song Jiva Jimmy. Tung Zeba Jimmy, Titam J. Beso Meva dance. You jang, could not so Naya. Not so much of there. Chijung did Julama head was. Or didn't that teach Kosa Lungusha. Joguno Lamdus. Lamdus or Mon Lavache Tabali. Dibutus. The J. You do the samba. Now retire going, Shando Jimmy was Zeva war. Yena so to Jawa Jogo, shock to some. To the Gugi Dani Jinge, Sanje Nanje, Sama Sangi. You understand Major Jeve, you and Dagging. Sanji Treva, Jimmy, training to go in. Siva Chizi Padu. Namdo the Bezon la Madeva. You hear the Passan Shin Shin. The Jananji, Nekap, the Jananji, gave out the Royals of Zedo. Then I saw them there. Good that you hear. You did Genesis of Jeva. Here she goes. The Sanja go Robson, the good water, Sanja go down the years. Ushigo. And the Sanji say, young number that was in the Rahinam. When you go so, Sanji say, Namje them, Namje, don't eat the Rahinam when you go so, did you so, didn't cause that. Sanji Namdata. Nimble Lover, Timan number that was here. No lover Namdaki. Shad, you got Shugo was. Or the Ranjinanda Shuga, Lornanda Shuga, or the Ranjinanda said, Sanjay said, Namje didn't know the shot, only shot. Lornanda said, Namje the hat, that can say. Namje the level Sani, saw Sani, diversion young. Junction to the Russia, the Ranjinanda Marasha Junction is or the lady, because Lubernanda, so Jamal Lamkita was joined the Rajinanda, who you said, so ye Namje Dendos, the quite John Guagamara, Mudushama, the Koya Gumia, Janaka, Koyamara. You should show that the Lamia, Panjapan, any Toya, Teleshi Shokusu, or the good did he show in the years. That would called Shogutel Nisha. That didn't Sugu said the young Nisha or Suguda Karsa, Shazapapa, Konanoya, and so the Jew later in the show to Sandoya. Tame Betnamaji, Geshe Gyeltsen about the Chokse, the delegate Karsa, this is the Consul Pendoshing is the Navajo, Diamond, so to go to Jordan, Sarah, Mambo, or the Nazoya is so this or that.
Those who have this English translation of the commentary, Geshe read between page 123 and top of page 124, 123 to 124. So in these sections, we find a brief presentation of enlightened bodies or kayas, Tibetans call ku. So there are different ways of classifying these enlightened bodies. One way would be Dharmakaya or the truth body, and Rupakaya or the form body. All right, this is one way to classify. And then within Dharmakaya or the truth body, we again have two truth bodies. One is called Savabhavika Kaya, natural truth body, in Tibetan, and Gyan Dharmakaya or the wisdom truth body. Right, so both of them are truth bodies or Dharmakaya. Natural truth body or Savabhavika Kaya, it really basically refers to the emptiness of Buddha's omniscient mind or the wisdom, right? That ultimate nature of Buddha's omniscient mind, we call Namkhen, is the natural truth body. Whereas wisdom truth body refers to the omniscient mind or the wisdom itself, right? And it's also a truth body. But the difference among many things we find between these two truth bodies is that we don't have to do anything on the path to be able to necessarily achieve the natural truth body or the emptiness of Buddha's mind, right? Because that is the ultimate nature of the Buddha mind itself. There is not necessarily something you are doing to be able to. It's just a matter of when you get to the enlightened state, you actualize it or you're introduced to that, so to speak. Right? Whereas the wisdom truth body, Gyan Dharmakaya, is something where on the path we are training our minds, cultivating the paths, purifying our obscurations, mental afflictions, and the imprints. So it all evolves into the omniscient mind. So that is more like the result of path development and purification practice. But both of them are truth bodies or Dharmakaya, Shugu in Tibetan. Now we have the Rupakaya or the form body we call Sukhu. This has two again. One is called Sambhogakaya, complete enjoyment body or complete resource body. Okay? And the other one is the emanation body or the Nirmanakaya, Tulku in Tibetan. So both Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya or complete resource body and emanation body are form bodies, Rupakaya. Now the difference among them, among many other things, is that Sambhogakaya, complete resource body, is only directly accessible to Arya Bodhisattvas. Only Arya Bodhisattvas can have a direct encounter with them, receive teachings and all of that. And so Sambhogakayas are not visible to ordinary beings like us. And so Sambhogakaya is characterized by 5 what we call definitive traits or characteristics or qualities. Whereas the emanation body, Nirmanakaya, that is something now could be visible to the fortunate ordinary beings, and it can come in many forms, such as in the form of Shakyamuni Buddha that we already know, or in the form of artist or crafts person, right? So in other forms, so they come in that form that ordinary fortunate beings can see them and then get benefited by them. So in short, so those are the 4 kayas, enlightened bodies we talk about. So 2 of them are truth bodies, natural truth body and wisdom truth body, and 2 of them are form bodies, complete resource body and emanation body.
What the Lungu said that 예방관대에서 그래서 내 오면서 상지 답밖에 오면에서 저 쇼딩이지 콜 정서 파버지야 뭐 너도 소주주 제야 뭐 뭐지야 말. 다 죽었어야 돼. 스타 가서 쇼 죽어서 소 죽어서 저 죽어서 들여와. 저 죽어서 다 소지 내다 이제 제용에 쓰지. 다 죽어서 저 나도 내야 돼. 다들 그 타스가요 말이. 잠이라 거기 가나 가고 이제 저 그거 돼야 돼. 저 죽어서 어디 이제 차라 용가 가서 누자코랑 그 레다마다 소소가 가서 제게 요리 소놈으로 가서 사이노 소소야 다들 상제고디 세르세르고 더버 디베시다 이데 상제 지요 말았다 가지 가서 쇼제가 요네 가서 쇼는 쇼 마시들 뭐뭐쇼 의지야도 쇼 쇼요 가서 쇼요
사실 저 수제 말.
가서 쇼 그래서 가서 쇼시에서요 말이야.
네네.
그래서 가게 가서 쇼제가 요네 쇼는 쇼 마시들 로지 뭐도
알레 가이마.
소소 매나 되죠. 그래서 저거 나도도 하는데 되지. 그 강가 찍어 딱 말아 손은 봐 됐던 거야.
So in the case of enlightened form bodies or rupakaya, as we said, there is sambhogakaya or complete enjoyment or resource body, which is characterized by 5 definitive traits or qualities that would include, a definite dwelling place, which is regarded as Agnishta Pure Land, right? Sambhogakayas are always in the Agnishta Pure Land, And so their direct disciples are Arya Bodhisattvas. So there are not going to be any ordinary beings like us in the assembly of Sambhogakaya, so things like that. Whereas the Nirmanakaya or the emanation body, is often visible to fortunate beings. So that depends upon, at least in the text, we talk about 3 types of emanation bodies. So right on top of page 124, so here translated as artwork emanation body. So I would say it's like emanation body as craftsmen or artists. And then emanation body is, in English comes out very weird, born emanation body, literal translation. So this is actually, it can be of variety forms and kinds. There is no fixed notion here, depending upon the pure karmic connection that one has with with the Buddha, so the Buddha could appear to that particular individual or group individuals in a certain form, right? There is no fixed form like that. It can appear in many ways. And sometimes even people who have no karmic connection, so they really can't see that. And an example of that Geshe shares is that in the Lhasa Chokhang Cathedral Temple, right? That's the holiest Chokhang Temple, Tibet. So there is the Cho, meaning Buddha there. Actually, this is my footnote in the form of Sambhogakaya. So Tibetans from all around the Tibet would come there, right, to be able to receive the blessing. But there are cases that they walk so far away from long distance, but when they came there, they really did not see the Cho at all. So what happened? It's there. So for depending upon one's karmic dispositions, things like that, so things like this, that could happen. And then the supreme emanation body is like on certain occasions, like Shakyamuni Buddha would appear, so then we have people of that time had direct connection to the Buddha and get direct benefits.
What is it? Sanjay did Zeba Zeta, Del Direct Shaki to go in bed, lands of Diego Maricona, Kazuko to bed. Bimelindo said in water. So the Kulumtona, the Pemata, the Jameva, Tata, Jopen, Tero Carsa, Nimanda, any bed, taking Lozo, the Chamosha, and Savosha, sugar, the dinner, Shiago, Kulumtoyo Marava, Ron healing to what is your Sanjay Kadoshi, the Tass, Del Direction, said, to take Kulum Gomars.
No.
Dia corona care ton ju de ta corona because cuz tul maya wa jo to wa is.
So among the enlightened qualities, Buddha qualities, Buddhas don't have to plan ahead something. Okay, this is my blueprint how to benefit sentient beings. They don't. It's very spontaneous, right? Spontaneity is depending upon the sentient beings' karmic disposition connection. So Buddha see actual benefit, appearing in certain form, it just appears. Buddha doesn't have to set for the motivation. Okay, I'm going to go there, right? Show myself there. There is no need for motivation or blueprint plan ahead of the time. It just spontaneously, happens with the Buddha. And of course, that's contingent upon the sentient beings, karmic dispositions and the merit and so many other things. And so it's like examples we can think of like our sun and moon, right? They just appear. So depending upon the seasons, they perform different functions, right? They, ripen the harvest, right? But the sun doesn't feel like, okay, it's time to ripen the harvest now, right? It doesn't. It's just a natural part of the solar system or the lunar system. It brings certain benefits, right, to the being. So just like that, Buddha, without need to, motivate themselves or think that I have to do something or want to do something or plan ahead. This is going to be my plan. Without such things, spontaneity, enlightened activity is, enlightened quality there.
Oh, there the Sanji the good Namya Ganga Kanji Kaji Shina. This is Sanji Tong was the Tevada so the be Lamya Langal Kasa, Nushu Sha Yungurawa. Sanji Karsa Chili, never the Kazi, the Hama. Tibetan Jeto Marava. Sanji Zebatilina, Yode, the Chita, Shea, the Shirakation with you, Kazi, and Tizi Sanji, Tebachi, Tebachi, tell you just surely get Lamia, the other Shenigaga, Sawad or Tamu, Sanji, you did the Shea or the Shea, which is your dish, Geshe is that one of James not that. Sanji, you nishi gushi or what is that? Just a Gilama does that. Mamoya says, Dela Dorjee Mishia made Jeva the Shonshinda, she shows that.
No. So it is really regarded as very important to be able to study or know about Buddha qualities, enlightened qualities. The more we know about enlightened qualities, that helps us to feel inspired, and then we're able to develop trust in a Buddha and Buddha's words, right? If we have a faith and that faith is stabilized, we feel inspired, then all of that really helps us to be able to pursue Dharma, because we know that's the way Buddha became Buddhas, and having that kind of faith and trust in Buddha are regarded as kind of essential, qualities to be able to, enter the path and, go through the path development. So that's why it's often gurus say that we should, the more we know about enlightened qualities, that really helps to generate faith, stabilize faith, feel inspired, and motivated to follow Dharma, study and practice. That's one of the big reasons. Of course, here in a very like a page and a half or something, these are just mentioned briefly. But should we want to know more about these things, of course, in the Uttara Tantra, Sublime Continuum, footnote, not a Tantra, it's just called Tantra, right? So Buddha's qualities are described in detail, and then also Maitreya in his ornament for clear realizations, right? Abhisamaya Alankara, Tibetan. So the chapter 8 really deals with Buddha qualities. So the details are there, should anybody would like to know more about Buddha qualities. So the advice is that please consult the other references,
Well, there is Sanji Chambers that direction, do only here, do this direction or that. When Jidin come down to be, Zihin knows the Ganga, bad to jail, Medatan, and tell us what it, Jazuna Luna, and the Loma was shot to Yachin, and the Lord bed, Yadama was your train, didn't know ya, Jazuna, Dudo, Changwa Langshe, and the Lumbaka, Medo, tell her, Shing tell her, Lumbaka, what the Ganga. In Sanji, the Lumba did here, there is Medo in the Medo, Hing and the Shingers, but the new record in the Chinger, Doalong, Dressunga. But the thing is the court down, she's not be million to see. See what the million court down, she was dressing like that.
So in various texts that mention of enlightened qualities, and some examples probably maybe we find inconceivable and hard to relate to, but others probably easy to relate to. So in Dual Lung is literally translating Vinaya discourse or transmission of the Vinaya discourse, as Geshe calls. It is said because enlightened mind, sees every reality in minutiae details as it is, and doesn't matter however long, something might have happened, whatever the case may be. So in that Vinaya transmission text, one example mentioned is, let's say the whole world is destroyed and kind of turned into ashes. The whole ashes is dumped into the ocean, Then after eons, let's say we find some remnants of the ash, and now you ask Buddha, well, we found few particles here. Could you tell us what is this all about? So Buddha can say, well, this is the remnant of like certain plants or the trees or something. Well, this is something to do with flowers and seed or vegetation. So I'm able to differentiate, right, what is and what is not. So that's the kind of enlightened, mind can do.
What did Sanji or the Dua Lunka or the Song Dua, she said, no, the Codible Jura. She that baby little change says that Kazaka Yordi, which today that can Lord Yard, because the Momo told anything, duty on duty in the shing, in the shing, meadow in the meadow, Lumba Kavine and dear Tsai and Tsai, any Loma and the Loma, this Sunguris, which is that.
So I think you shall find that example very relatable, and he thought, because otherwise he said there are many other examples given, sometimes these are inconceivable to us, even we are got stuck with the example, really. Examples themselves are quite astounding there. But this one, he thought, it's easy to relate that, if the whole universe is destroyed, ashes dumped into the ocean, we wait another 100 eons, and then, some pieces are discovered, and now ask Buddha, could you tell us about this thing? Then Buddha said, well, this is, a remnant of a particular tree. And not only the tree, it's actually, this is something to do with the leaf, not the root or the branch, whatever. So that's the kind of interesting thing. Otherwise, we hear often in the Buddhist literature, Buddha's activities are spontaneous, right? And for us, what does spontaneous mean? Like the spontaneous enlightened activity, like we throw around, right? Spontaneous enlightened activity. Okay, now what do we do that? So it becomes too abstract for us, right? Whereas when we see something like that example in the Dual Lung oral transmission, okay, now we can relate to that. Ash is dumped into the ocean, then you have some ash out. Now you ask Buddha what these ashes are about, then Buddha can say this is this, this is that, Yeah.
What they said, Sanji Berka, Shinoshia, Karisha, the Chinese thing, because the summer Mamata did go, cut to be mailing to Bison de Yomaris. Cut to the Tata, the Chishu and what they short that. The outdated child is Kizakoti show something. That the Ramos and sort of what did they see you do? Sort of what did they done? Yomaris. Carry Tata, because number top was that never. Cut to chat Nanga Shavana. What they Bezome or you were, she said, there's a Sanji Lua Miva do Teta. Tonda, some of the tongue then. Subject I ever did some of them tomorrow. This is the red tongue with my
So that's why, as a part of the description of enlightened qualities, we said Buddhas have no conceptual thoughts, right? conceptual thoughts or conceptualization or conceptuality doesn't exist in the enlightened state. So everything is spontaneous. As Geshe said, in our case, like if we want to benefit somebody, maybe we think about, okay, how much I can benefit, or how much we plan, and then we have to do that. Buddha doesn't need that, right? Given the moment, the situation, whatever, it just spontaneously can happen. And there's no such thing as a mistake. Oh my gosh, or maybe that was wrong. I didn't do that right. Or I didn't complete. There's no such thing with Buddha enlightened activity. It's just going to be complete and whatever is necessary in a given situation or a moment. So that's a Buddha quality, But if Buddha had to think like us, that is a little difficult, isn't it? Sentient beings are countless. Like now, immeasurable sentient being countless. Okay, that takes, right? Doesn't it? Just spontaneity is the way to go with the Buddha. So in the text, sometimes it seems like there is to do with decoding the meaning wrong, and so that's why some claim that in the Buddhahood there is no mind. What actually is that there is no concept, there is no conceptuality. So somehow they translated that into having no mind. Well, if Buddha has no mind, then how does Buddha know everything, right? Without a mind, how do you know all the realities and phenomena? That's not possible.
What did it? Some years and because Shiva Pura Tang Lindu, Namdo Mega, Sono Jujuan, Medozic Bendo, Sonless, Single number Tedal Dishiba, Shogan Room, Yos Younger Day Young Rooms, Shiva Shiva Teda, Tamjani, did that day, take back Sonley, take back Jig Yoso, Younger Dawa, Jero, Single number Jing, Sewa. Quand dishi we tone symptoms jobada tawes niebada nasada nasada sheseda simjada so siba nyusuda yoshida dewa jawataji te dedan shejin remoshi shejin Jeda Rengi Sheba Shibada. Kanji Disheba, Yos Nangala de Rensila, Yungrutan de Shedena Sheba Shaves, number Miba, number Yama Shiva Shade, Shida, come Tati the Shadi, Tihibi, Shibe, Shebala, Medo, Jesu Songs, or the Sanje Benamas, Sheba Piade. Sanji Kuku Shiva Pad. The Sanji Kusu took them Shiva Pad. The solemn schedule de Kivatan Yamaris. Sanji Kuku showed them because the period. Tinsan was the Sanji Kuku Yam and the Kusu took them Shiva Pad. The solemn schedule Kiva that there is a Yom Gagaji. What is it?
So in the middle of page 124, there's a passage quoted from what's called Pushpa Kuda Dharani, or heap of flowers Dharani. So there's a whole passage there, and Geshe-la's explanation pertaining to that is when we make offerings, right, puja, that's what we do. Whether we make offerings to a real Tathagata or a Buddha, or we make an offering to representations of a Tathagata in the form of a statue, painting, or whatever, right? The merits that we accrue from this should be the same. There should not be any difference, in terms of accumulation of merit. It's not like if you make offering to the real Buddha here, that's more merit, and if you only offer to that Buddha's image or representation, the merit is somehow less. That's not the case. So that's what this Dharani text tells us.
What did that? Some Sanjay Mo showed the Pura, that pay share of that. Good to the things that also appear the potential of you did. So Tevada, their John, was paying Yami, he said.
Maybe our experience is like, we said, oh, if I really get to see real Buddha and make offering, that would be so fortunate, privilege, right? That's our mindset. But what is stated here is that, out of really pure mind and faith, if we make offerings to the Buddha when he was alive versus, right, we were not there now. We make offerings all the time to Buddha here, representation, the merit is the same. But somehow our mind is like, okay, now Buddha is not really here, I'm just making offering to the images, and maybe the merit is less, right? So that's our, mind problem, there. Geshe didn't say that, but yeah.
What did she say? She will go to Musho Pura. And then goes to the shop number is what the case in the songs. Love to let the English baker Bemaka do town as Joyce songs or city consider Samuel Shiva the Tadando dinner today, you must say that the Mambo race or Tiago race or Tiridago.
So as Krishna said, today, what we have are the representations of Buddha's body, speech, and mind, right? So we are worshipping them or making offerings through them. And so the merit accrues from our practice like that is the same as when Buddha was actually alive, and we did the same thing to actual Buddha's body, actual speech, and the actual mind. And so this is not only one source text says this, but in many other source texts, the similar things have been said. As you guys said, in the Shiksha Samukcha or anthology of training here, I call Compendium of Bodhisattva Trainings. There is a quote of Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, a White Lotus Compassion Sutra, telling the same thing. Whether you make offerings to the actual Buddha or the representations of the Buddha, the merit is going to be the same, provided you did it with your pure mind and the faith.
Okay. Tabazam Deva, Jandoni Dogova Devas. Tabas Joto, that did 10 years to my children. Ronji Mujo, Tabatobala, Tony Dog, Mara, Kazata Murabatum, Don Tabata, Namja Hedegoro. The 10 years Tabatona, Tony was Tabata Humoris.
So now we are on page 125, right on the top. We move to the next sub-point where it is captured as necessity of realizing emptiness even for those wishing for only liberation or nirvana, right? And so here, according to Prasangika Madhyamika schools, right, the highest middle way philosopher school, that even to achieve freedom or liberation from samsara, right, called your personal nirvana, one must realize emptiness. So that is like a exclusive standpoint of Prasangikas. That, of course, for enlightenment you need it. Even to achieve liberation, you must realize emptiness. Well, there are other Buddhist schools of thought, they don't agree with that, right? We know that. For example, all the Buddhist schools of thought below, even including, let's say, Savatandika Madhyamikas, the other middle way philosophy school, and down below, they said, in order to achieve just nirvana for yourself, just freedom from samsara only for yourself, you need to realize, the selflessness of a person, the coarse one. You really don't need emptiness, right? That's their contention. But Prasangika said, no. Everybody has to realize emptiness to get there. So that's the debate or kind of conversations, right, that happens.
Ziba Guba, there are Dembaton, train you, don't you the Chisha, she so Tone, Connery, Digi Kiji Rakbe Medaso, Judu, also the dog with Tony Gomez, Koali, Tree. Rajabatawa Georgie, Tony, Toa Chi, Tony Chi Shadi, she Sarah, the other Sergina, Tabazam Tawa, Tony, Tawato Gobar, Masi San Sanje Tawa Laya, Tony Tomo go per dredging. Tada Shirama, the daughter was Sanje, Tony Dog, Yomarwa. What is it? That something was around you, the sound you don't go to Mara. No, did it? Gee, chances, yes, today, Sergene, Tabata, do you have a dog? Masi Sanji Tavala, the Migo, the agency. Sanji thought me do get it, Shrama, daughter Nisha. That only to be teaching Don Namja. Sanji, come member. Debes, you do Devagashi get that. There is Shonga young Tony to be teaching the Denham. Sanjay, you can't do it. Sanjay Tawa, Tony talk about Shinayan. Tabata Tawa, Tony Samato Mugo talk over Mundibes. Ronju Mishajan, the Shonga Kongso. To this, the dog is she tells you she never told me. Lumping Tabazam Taba la near Mirua, near you drew a sheros. Or Tata Diga and the Tabaza Tower and Jimmy told you those needable drushes. Says that they tell you to my chejuries. Ronju Misha, the Ronjiba, the Sims about the Tabas don't you talk of Sumaris? That daughter what you do the Chiramazo, Sanjay Gomotova, don't you talk of Sumarva? Tell me tomorrow, don't degrees you are.
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains to what you see on page 125. So as we can see here, there is a kind of disputation, right, or argumentation happening here. Those who say that you don't need to realize emptiness to attain nirvana, and the Prasangika says, no, you have to, that's not option B here, kind of thing. And so there is going to be argumentation or debate, right, between these proponents or debaters, if you will. So as Geshe said before, we want to keep this in our mind, that from Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, even to achieve personal nirvana from samsara, one must realize emptiness, period. There's nothing else, right? Otherwise you can't get there. Whereas the other Buddhist schools of thought down below, from Savatantrika, Madhyamika, all the way to the Vaibhashika, they said, no, to achieve personal nirvana from samsara, you just need to realize selflessness of a person. There is no need for emptiness, right? So they are in one group, and Prasangika is just by themselves, and then, so what is the debate, right? So first we have to say, what is the debate? Are they debating about? And so there is this, on page 125, we have a kind of quotation, so which is, Tenpa Thonwet Treasure Shins, by seeing truth, you feel liberated. Why do you need, it's unnecessary to realize emptiness. So that's the claim, right? In order to achieve nirvana, you need to see the truths. So there is no need for emptiness. That's just pointless. So that's the debate, right? So Prasangika said they don't agree with that, right? So here are the things, different schools of thought. So I'll try to slow down and say this. First one, Prasangika said one must realize emptiness even to achieve nirvana from samsara. Other Buddhist schools of thought say, no, you need to realize selflessness to do that, not emptiness. That's one thing, one debate. The next one is that Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, the two lower Buddhist schools of thought, they even claim, they say, you don't need emptiness, realize even to become Buddha. Okay. Forget about attaining nirvana, even to achieve enlightenment, you don't need to realize emptiness. That's their take on that. Okay. So for them, many of them, not all of them, so Mahayana sutras that explain emptiness, they say, well, these are not words of the Buddha. Somebody made it up. So they don't accept, right? So there's a whole section about establishing the Mahayana sutras as the words of the Buddha, right? Because they say that, Buddha talk about, you said in the Mahayana sutra, no, that's not Buddha's word. Somebody cooked it up, right? We don't buy that. Now, another related argument here is that the Chittamatrins, minor-only school, and then the Sevatantra Madhyamikans. So they are with Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas, that in order to achieve nirvana, samsara, you don't need emptiness. You need to realize selfness as a person. But in order to become Buddha, you must realize emptiness. So they are kind of with them on one side, they are not with them on the other side. Are you with me? All these complicated philosophical standpoints, so among all of these things, seems like Prasangika said, doesn't matter. You want nirvana, you want enlightenment, you must realize emptiness. That's a very clear-cut standpoint there. Okay? No.
Geshe Sheva la sum Tito para Luruje Gone Jerteba Shiji Kum Shida di Sheva Sedatembala Seva Bamba sum or that de Chidanda Juju Koraka dile de and the Tizilam Lum de Meva Shaji Meva sum Juju Koraka taking your what is it? You cuddle to the Shirali Tindia got here is that had the cars that Timinda, but then the other Maji de Tizakato said the Paden talking about the daughter years and Tizakato Domo Boyer, or that Jones so that the Shendal here, the Junil here, but then the way here to get the dead she is what is it?
No, so we are on page 126, right on the top. There is a quotation which reads, "Since the scriptures say that without this path there is no awakening." So there is a translation of the lines from Bodhisattva Shantidev's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, right? That's in the chapter 9. Of course, the explanation of these lines are already right in the commentary on that, but here the author says, so what I want to do is I want to bring this other text, right, that throw light on this one. And the text here is in particular Chandrakirti's clear word commentary, right, 6L, and Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on the introduction to the middle way there. So these are related to what we called establishing Mahayana sutras as words of Buddha. Right? There are many other texts where this is done. For example, in the Dodechen Sutra Alamkara, Ornament of Mahayana Sutras. Then there is the Toge Baba, Blaze of Reasoning by Baba Viveka. And then here, this mention of Chandrakirti's clear words, So we will have a brief explanation about that,
Okay, the Jugbalis, Juba rounded is Sajiv Dotambole. GSTDL, Deda pen Jibu Ruso Jebe, Jibu Pu, Jibu Sen Debani, Jiba Zaji, Java Shinji, Jibu Shinji, Lumuta Taji Segi Nanji, Rangulo Dogi, Java Shin Maino. Namde Narsoba Chiva Tise, Rangulo Top Jeves, Lumbu Shawata de Shideva Yeno. Java said that she chose Sabayam, some Jemata, the Labe, Shawani, Nuran Sayataji, Segna, Rangulo Dogi, Jeva Maino. Chose Basad, the Bar de la Neva, chose Sabane. And wrong usually Shawala Neves, you do wrong Sayataji, Shindu, Deva, Shesums, or did that Jubat and Sajib daughter and Song Yodi Kongsin, this or that. Choices about the choices and Jenny, so get the Rikshan and Niraka saying not to race. She had a solo book. Get up to because the jungle your name is said no to Maris. When the Jew was $10, Jew was big on the Star, she was the Jew rickshaw, you call your nation was having got to Marwa. The consequence, lots of your nation was also in the rig, quite loyal of Niga say no girl, didn't I? In the Saturday, but any loyal of the say no girls, so much because they hear what the Saturday, but say no to Mars, loyal of the rickshaw, the mother. Saturday, loyal of the regular say no grace, or the Saturday, don't trust the drum, or the heavy is.
See, you're not touchable shower.
La,
You're not touchable shower.
really,
Chidan, you're not Sigomar.
really, you're not touchable.
So we are on page 126, and of course there are 3 points related to this. The first one is called a general demonstration based on scriptures and reasoning. In other words, relying upon a scriptural authority and reasoning. So then the Mahayana, sutras importance and being a word of Buddha is established. And so here, great Indian master Chandrakirti, in his auto commentary to the Middle Way, so he quotes Dashabhumi Sutra, Sutra of the 10 spiritual grounds, right? He quotes in this to make his case, so this spiritual authority. And as Geshe explained, simplified it, that what that Dashabhumi Sutra says a couple of things. Number one, when an ordinary person generates a genuine bodhicitta, that's the idea, right? Generate. So by the power of the bodhicitta, because that ordinary person has become a bodhisattva, in terms of the lineage, that ordinary person can outshine the arahats of the Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, solitary realizers and hearers, not in terms of the qualities per se, in terms of the lineage, right? Because of this incredible bodhicitta mind has been generated by an ordinary person, but the fact of that, so from a family lineage point of view, that outshines the qualities of arhats of Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, translated here as disciples and self-realizers or something anyway. But in terms of where, at what point, the Bodhisattvas can outshine the arhats of the lower vehicles in terms of their qualities is from the 7th spiritual ground of Bodhisattva, right? From the 7th spiritual ground, then not only by the power of the lineage family, they outshine them. Now in terms of, we can say, lo means the power of the mind, or right, knowledge, they can outshine that. And so the example given to illustrate the first point, where even an ordinary person, when they generate a genuine bodhicitta first time, afresh, right? So that outshines the qualities of arhats of the lower schools. It's just like when a prince is born into the family, right? This little baby, right, probably knows nothing, but everybody values this person. Why? Because it is a majesty family, right? The king's family, right? So now this child has to go through education and then learning, then that outshine maybe others later. But just because you're born into the royal family, because of the royal lineage, everybody respects you, right? So like that, when an ordinary person generates afresh bodhicitta genuinely, you have the same kind of respect, right, in terms of family.
What the long the Tongpan David Jesine, Jubaran the Dodi Chownes, long delay, you do Ransan now, Shaggy, Ransan now, Shaggy, Shotam Jirashima, Shiva Yodo, she is Shaw, Sawa, Yedi, here some the Sajiva Dodi, what the Sawa things was. Then symptom, but yes, sim Jeva Jeva, Tondabe, symptom, Jebe, Nika Yinla. Got the love with Sabe, dog, you don't know, really go and say, no young, wrong, shall you sim, getting my ready, because no young said. The matter of mother party, lawyer, you say, no minute, such a woman, said, never, said, shall you simba, education, love, go by other way, Tala, Mosum to share, Mosum to Judan, she will go near, wrong with you, show the mination. Sat demanded to the she knew me, you did Chevaji Toma. The lawyer of Yena now, second number, Doti Tendo. Didn't you know, Geshe Damitova, saw Dendi. She didn't sat on Bovaja. You know, lawyer going to say, you know. She should be no minute. Satan will say dummy, most of the talking. You know, doesn't say dummy. Say dummy, Dharma, mother, Shero, young to Gongso was. What there is a dig her, say dummy, Carsa. You know, say them as Zan Domina. And the Satan boy saying, wrong lawyer, he no. The Satan boy lawyer say, no, me never have a teacher or take a shiny shot. And you know, you are doing that, don't you know what long tea drum. Then you go around because what the tea drum shake us. What is it?
You don't touch somebody, dig, choke a tomato, but you send
Oh, the Madonna. In the so Satan boy, they say, no, lawyer, don't say, no, the log is said, no, sat the money mother don't talk my son to her. What is that? She, you know, don't you know what I mean? Satan boy say no to her.
All the Satan, what don't you thought there? So now Chandrakirti, he started to, comment on that Dashabhumi Sutra passage, 10 spiritual ground passage he quoted earlier. And so through this quotation, what he's trying to establish is that Shravaka's disciples, translated here, or hearers, and Pratika Buddhas, solitary realizers, translated here as self-realized ones, they do, actualize what we call the selflessness of phenomena, right? Emptiness phenomena from his point of view, Prasangika. And if they have not, then they said, how can arhats of the lower schools can outshine the bodhisattva on the first spiritual ground? They could not, right? Bodhisattvas on the first spiritual ground also have direct insight into emptiness. So bodhisattvas are able to outshine them in terms of mental power when they reach the seventh ground. Right? Before that, the arhats of the lower schools, they can outshine even the bodhisattvas of the first ground, and this is primarily due to the claim or the fact that they have realized the selflessness of phenomena, and they have realized the emptiness, in other words. Right? Yeah.
What is because Songs Toby young the Gonzo, Niran, Dazon, Shay, Dami Toba, Meva, Deva, Rigbayang, Tang Long Duiji, Rigba, the Long Duiji, never he will Rigbasoni, Jugbaran did the song so, the Ribatangoni, the Tibetan over and he never owns Shiva Meva, the Trade, Shiva Trade, the Divan Dorjee, the Trade, that the symptom boy. Tambo symptom Bobby Javis and somebody young. No number Javis, say no, but Joro, here songs, or there. Because I, you know, say the middle Mina and some Satambo, and the Jaga say no, she is. Because the Satambo told you was a door. You know, Jagato or the mother this here in the Riba Tambo, Chino, you know, the teacher Carter said, don't they gain the Junju, the any Omaning Bona, the Koje, the teacher got a moment, the Riba, my short, said that he could dig Sadumba, Tony Domina. You know, the Domina, so Satambo, the Nira doesn't say no good is. Carasana, Nira don't you do Yamara, so Satambo don't use the daughter.
That is regret when to do
La,
that is regret when to do because
La,
did and that is regret when to do because
Rebecca would do that Dol Caricia, so the Satambo, they say no to Marisara, like that. Don't you do me? Logo Satamo say no to work. Could you not do Yamar Satamo you do
so we're on page 127 there. This whole section is, you know, as we said, trying to establish, you know, the point that Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, you know, do realize or could realize emptiness and selflessness of phenomena. So this is done by way of scriptural authority or quotations. That's one way. And the second one is by way of reasonings, right? So we have this true approach strategy to do this. And so as said there, a number of arguments will be advanced here or due. The one is, as Geshe said earlier, if one claims that arhats of the lower schools do not have to or do not realize emptiness, selflessness phenomena, then how can we say that they can outshine the first ground bodhisattvas in terms of mental powers? That cannot be correct, because first ground bodhisattvas have direct insight into emptiness already, and whereas they don't have. So how can you say the one who doesn't have is outshining you, right? That makes no sense, right? That's one, yeah. And then, as Geshe said earlier, this is part of establishing Mahayana Sutras as words of Buddha. So there are many texts we also cited before, and some extras are like in the Junju, the Bodhisattva Guide has sections on that. And then in the Uma Nyingbo, the essence of the middle way, has that. And then we said the Sutra Alankara, ornament of Mahayana Sutra has. Then we said the blazing of the reasoning, talk about all of those things, right? They deal with this subject matter of the topic in details.
What is it? Karsa, you know, don't you know, Mena, Shazza Satango, say no to Greece. Sajiva say no, Mother Sunday. You know, don't you talk about Yevata or the Hero, this is a ticket Satango, the GSTDL is charging because the Suxum, we don't get it. Don't you talk to Satango, say no to
Look at this.
Satango, say no to GSTDL is loving.
Oh,
say that don't you do, you know? Do you know, and GSTDL is. Say no, but now you sat on what you know, doesn't say no to us. But the number of cars could you out on your door is GSTDL Saturday to you do your marriage. Couldn't show us as well.
I mean, just like another parallel we could draw here is to make the case is, you know, if one has attain the what we call supramundane path realization, then that realization of the quality can outshine, right, the mundane path of the qualities. That makes sense. So in the same way, that arahats of the lesser vehicles, who have realized the emptiness, selflessness phenomena, so they can outshine, in terms of mental power, the first ground bodhisattvas. But in terms of the family lineage, they cannot, right? Even the ordinary bodhisattva who generated bodhicitta afresh now can outshine the arahats of the lesser school in terms of the family lineage or the altruistic mind, let's say. That's easier, right? Yeah.
What the Ribanibani rounded Shirabaki, the Dagi, comes on jet, the Jiva Tajet and the Bangway Mijuro, he songs. This is that you don't have to do any new Obama my task, Tony Matovich. New Obama, Tony Dog, take you, she dimension to Guyamarava. Take you, new Obama, Tony Dog, Charava. Timmy Rangi mentioned new Obama, Tony Dog, Yamari, Kazata, we don't do what.
The Chaje Power Minds, the Chaje
the new.
So on top of page 128, the second argument is laid out. Here the translation is something different that I would normally do, where it says that they would not have eliminated all the latencies. Usually we translate that for paksha, predisposition, but the Chaje is usually translated as delusions, afflictive emotions. Okay, not latencies. So that just I want to clarify there. So the second argument is that so we can put it in a very syllogistic, logical order, right? We can say that the arahats of the lesser vehicles, have not abandoned delusions, afflictive emotions, because they have not realized emptiness, isn't it? Emptiness realization is necessary in order to get rid of delusions. Now, if you say these arahats have not realized emptiness, that means they still have delusions, right? So that's the argumentation. Then, of course, the lower Buddhist schools of thought, they might have different syllogistic reasoning. Said, no, the arahats of the lesser vehicles have, abandoned delusions because they have realized the selflessness of a person, right? Because they said they don't need to realize emptiness. So you can see different syllogistic argumentations can be laid forward there. Yeah.
Oh dear. Ribasma de Randele, souls of Rangola, Mikbashinjo the Jewish, Kansa Dame, Tawaya Menjute, Dagbe, Pumbo Mikbashiro, she is some Tony. Nira Jajunji, Tedaki, Kansa Dame, saying some Matota, Tedaki, Kansa Dashi Pumbo, Dembari Shembe, Dembari Shembe, Shinji Logi, Shiu, Sumaju, Shiva was. Tereda, Pumbo Demashiba, Kansa Dame, Shabar. Kansa Damis no Kansa Rondo the She. She Damis no Dashi Kansa Dashi Pumbo. Demomoto dig on Carstedes over She Damis Shagro, this is in the judges of Kansa Damis Zomato, no, in Yumoto Maris. Kansa Damis Zomato Maris, Pumbo Demito Muduas. So Zobazo Pumbo Demito over.
Ala Kansa Dameto, Kansa Damato, or Pumbo Dameto,
that those are called that they were drawn out of Zivarda. Pumbo Kansa Dameto, Tando Pumbo Dendro, Ziver, Drongo Yomara. These were.
Ale Kansa Dameto, Pumbo Demeto,
Pumbo Demeto, Pumbo Demeto, Drongo Mara. Kansa Dameto, Sani. Pumbo is your killing Mara.
Oh, killing Mara. What is it? Ale Jenna, the Ale, oh, because Kansa Dame, Matova take the Kansa Pumbo Demeto.
Kansa dame moto na ko phongpo de deme to mara de ko ja jo re to mar ti wara.
So the third argument on page 121, more at the top, is because the other schools of Buddhist thought, they claim that in order to achieve nirvana, you just need to realize selflessness of a person. You don't need to realize emptiness for that, isn't it? So they claim that arahats their arahats have realized, the selflessness, right? Because they have achieved nirvana. And so the counter-argument to that is that, if you say that they have realized selflessness, then how come they could still be grasping at the aggregates, which is the basis of the self, If you have realized selflessness, then you should not be grasping at anything here. But whereas the aggregates, which constitute the basis of labeling self, still has a grasping. So that means, they didn't realize the really selfness, isn't it? Kind of a little bit there, but did not finish it, is it? So that's the counter-argument there, right? So how can you claim that they have realized selflessness when they are still could be grasping at the true existence of aggregates?
차제 보면 시바 메데티 돈이 뭐도 장 강사랑시 대비 지지 도비 남의 곳을 도비 고바 시와 근데 감사의 차지 다시 사원 시바 방바 방니비 시대 되게 남의 도서 때라 파바 링도 거네 대고서 도바 좋아 나 내서 곳을 줘베 리괴 줘라 되게 남의 곳을 도비 돈이 뉴저군다 사원봉니신 대무소도 도시 코버 고노디 때니 뉴저 렌지 사원봉니 비셰데 히세르스 어디다고 거기다가 다다 대조 거사다메 런제테 거사 저 동아들 거사다메 샤고 말와 다메 참고 샤고 말와
런제테 발라도
어디서 티 코니가 라마도 대조 도도 다 강사담这个道理他让就没些的강사담이 또 그것도 쓰고 가지고 강사 또 가야 돼요 봐 강사담이 또让就没让就또 하듯이 쓰고 대조 강사담이 쓰도 강사담이 왜 쓰고 봐 어디 거기 라마도 야 되서요 뭐
So we are still on page 128, more towards in the middle or towards the end. So the gap, or so to speak, like where they sort of, the two schools of thought, maybe they are not communicating clearly with each other. There's a communication gap, is this, that within Buddhist schools of thought, okay, we're not talking about non-Buddhist here, right? Within Buddhist schools of thought, Savatandika Madhyamika school, the sub-school of the middle way philosophy, and all the way to the Vaibhasikas, right? So they claim that in order to achieve nirvana, you must realize selflessness, So they claim that their arahats have realized selflessness. But then we say, what is selflessness to them? For them, selflessness has to do with the emptiness of self-sufficient and substantially existent self, right? That kind of a selflessness. They don't use the word emptiness, right? There is no self that is self-sufficient and substantially existent, but yet we misperceive it, we grasp it. But if you realize that kind of selflessness, then you are able to achieve nirvana. That's their contention, isn't it? Whereas the Prasangikas are saying selflessness meaning, that's not the selflessness, right? For Prasangika, selflessness means, that a person does not exist intrinsically in and of itself, isn't it? That's the selflessness of a person. So you can see that, so they use the word selflessness both sides, but they are not communicating, right? The meanings actually towards each other. Does that make sense? So this is why, there's that gap in there.
What is it? Tejo dan kansa raja te zuyo to kansa dami to shago marwa. What do? Kuzo ramazu jo tinso ro ta. Shi sigwa ko zuwa yung marwa. Se da roji me de kansa dami rapa to kansa dami to shago. Tenzin Dorjee time Shangwa Dong Maja is said that James the Kasa time dogs in Minda de Shumu, Raya de Dog of the Jiwa.
Tinjuke Kansa Ranja to be Tom with the Kansa Tame Rapadas killing or
Oh, Taba killing with the Kasa, Titon the Kasa time Dog Show.
So that's why the argumentation is happening between them, isn't it? They are not really communicating their meanings of selflessness, right, to each other or decoding that message. And of course, from Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, like the kind of selflessness they establish is acceptable, but there's a coarse form of selflessness of a person, right, gross level. But in order to realize the selflessness of a person, according to Prasangika, you have to realize the subtle one, right? And the subtle one that we are talking about here is the lack of intrinsic existence. And that's the meaning of selflessness according to Prasangika Madhyamikas. But on the other side, they are not getting that meaning, and they are only sticking to their selflessness, which is, there is no self-sufficient and substantially existent self, right? And that they consider as selflessness, but for Prasangika, that's not a selflessness, of a person. Yeah.
What did you call Could the Ramadu do this? Bondu Jang said, Tomo Gomo, some Jose Japon, Shero. Then the third Lamdi Ni Tono, the Gonu, the Shevada. Pangza Tin, Savon Bamba, Pangne, Dajambe, Toba, Derby, Donald, the Changdo, the Red. Pen, Suzy, the Shika, Tony, Cemetery, take over Chive, then the Sajulam, Saju the Lamshima, some driver, some Donam, some Zabi, you don't the Kalan, Oma, we don't do Josh, but did Kiros the Kazada with Tosia, the Raja, the Tejo killing Maris. Tibetan Carson Penna Sundini don't any Sanji and Nasha killing or the Ronjiba, Sundini don't some Sanji and Nasha killing Marwa. What is what is that?
Ale Rangibe, Sundini already set up Sundini don't Sanji to
Sundini don't have a lot of Sanji killing her.
Rangibe, the killing.
That Ronjiba, Tony was on the killing Marwa.
So this explanation pertains to what you have between bottom of page 128 and 129 there. So Prasangikas are telling them that the selflessness that you propounded is not the really selflessness. It has to be lack of intrinsic self, but you are only talking about self that is cannot exist adequately by itself, right? Insufficient self and substantially existent self, right? So the example given to make that distinction is even though Chittamatrins, mind-only school, claim that if you realize the non-duality of subject and object, you can be Buddha, right? But then the Seventh-day Madhyamika says, like, wait, no. Seventh-day Madhyamikas do not agree with the Chittamatrins that realizing non-duality of subject and object, right, cannot take you to Buddhahood, because you have to realize emptiness. So just as they have, right, this argumentation standpoints, a similar way there is the difference between Prasangika's selflessness and the lower school selflessness. So we will stop there today, and we welcome questions. We'll first go to our Dharma friends on the cyberspace, and then we come back. We don't have there?
We have a question from Bob Friedman, and it's off topic. I mean, it's related, but it's from a different book, really, that he's trying to ask a question on. So he sent the text message, so I apologize. So I'm gonna actually read his question, and then give you where he's getting that question from. So his main question here is, I guess he's reading a book on emptiness by Geshe Tashi Sering, on emptiness, and so he read this quote or this passage. And so what he's trying to understand is that the quote implies a difference between dependent arising and dependent origination. And he wants to know if Geshe can explain the difference, or if there is a difference. So
wait a minute, dependent arising,
dependent arising,
and dependent origination,
right? And so he wants to know if Geshe can explain the difference, or if there is a difference.
Okay.
So the quote here is, the mind understanding emptiness is a mind realizing the non-affirmative negative that sees that all phenomena do not exist inherently. And then the other one is the mind understanding dependent arising is an affirmative mind realizing how phenomena do exist. Dependent origination as proof of dependence and emptiness as a proof of absence of independence can be said to be the two sides of the same coin, or better still, a dual perspective on one and the same world. So that's the quote. So he's trying to see, again, it kind of, from his understanding, it implies a difference between dependent arising and dependent origination. And is there a difference between
So
them?
how did he define the dependent origination there? Can you say one more time?
Sure. Dependent origination as proof of dependence, and emptiness as proof of the absence of the independence. Oh, sorry. Am I reading? No, sorry. No. The mind of understanding. Yeah. The mind understanding emptiness is a mind realizing the non-affirmative negative that sees that all phenomena do exist inherently. And then, here, the mind understanding dependent arising is an affirmative mind realizing how phenomena does exist or do exist. And so that's the quote. But then it says, dependent origination as proof of dependence and emptiness as proof of absence of independence can be said to be two sides of the same coin.
Okay, well, now I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot going on there, so let's have practice patience, I suppose, before we get the real answer there. Tajeton again, Tiwa Shunga Chidwa. Kurangi Tiwa, the Dangushi of the Dirisha, the Tendel Sessorwa. Tendel. Tendel Danke, Caso Tenju Sessorwa. Dinelia and Tonda Marabe Chabaka Yomares Rawage. Tended that Tenjunil, tended that Tenjunila, Tonda Marabe Chaba Yomares Raroge. That could Tiwa the Tiagi Jabjong Nidus Rawage. Cook and the ceramic cancel trashed sitting like Debjolo, there is a lot, Tomani call. Ceramic Kinsugi. Ceramic cancel trashed sitting get Tomani called Debjolo, there is a Rawage. That Dina and the Jabjong needed Rawage. The Koran quiet Cheva in us Rawage. And Tongbani said the Tenal Pedu Galata, Kanjakanda, Tangajan Mega Sigrovage. And a called Mega Rangshin Chineta, Chetamche, Rangshin Maduwe, Tonga Mega Shagdus Ravage. Tenju the Shah in the Kanalaya, Chetamje, that you ever do Dube Nabajan Ravage. Gagbe Nabajan, Dube Nabajan Ravage. The Shah in Dus Ravage. Just Koran Kodan Cheva Yena. Tenjun says your wagon. Tenjun said the church of the 10 year do at your wagon. Tonga said the Rangshin Mandu wagon. Gagwe number Shagudu, so that it didn't in a menace wagon. The king is a country called it again 10 days that Tonga Niki Java do Sidu along the Pesha wagon. Pesha the Jamduni over the Tonga the 10 days says your wagon. Dinner are ready to church of Jamduni source wagon.
Rigida, this is in your treated of the Tonga Tenzu Tobata, Tenzu Tomba says, Geshe Gyeltsen.
Or did this is Rawage, and attended the Tenjun let on that Keba you may soon again.
Tended that Tenzu the Chikmate, this is not Tonga Tenzu to Tobata, Tenzu Tomba to Tos and the Kakashagota.
Alone, ditch soon.
Tenzu Tomba to Tomas. Tendre Giddy, Tony Toya, Tenzu Tomba to Tos.
Tender Jumzen Girogan.
That Tomba Tenzu Tos citizen, Teresa Yorta.
No.
Because Tony Toba Zangi, Tomba Tenzu Tos,
No.
그래서 내가 랑시 동바 인자 이 규제 샤지 샤지 다시 태그도스 계세 랑시 동바 마이나 샤지 다시 태그도스 동바 댄주도 또스 너 어디 추스 우리
알아 동배 김생기 댄주 수도 비용 거
어다 동바 둔시 동바 인데 규제기 댄중이 뭐 주야셔서 봐
라테용도스 알산다디 댄데게 따지 동바 드빈데 칸라
다 레라야다
가서 꼭 각바 주고
주저 막 가게 그거 댄제 내 맘에 댄제 그거로
라로와
진짜 다들 랑선에서 나야로 돼 댄주 동바 도도 동바 댄주 도바 이제 동바 댄주도 도바데 요르샤도 어디
알레노소소
또또 사네 이 신에 댄주 동바 도도 거다
al tende ke tomangel to
또 띵에 돈이에 또
and they show la
디졸라 이
tombe
동바
tende
댄주 도
al tende show to bro so Geshe says well just to get straight to that question about is there a difference in terms of meaning between dependent arising the Tibetan word tendo and dependent origination tenjung he said they're just more the same okay so he thought maybe the question that you're coming from probably from his perspective is related to the statement or claim we said that one has to realize the meaning of emptiness as dependent arising and the meaning of dependent arising as the emptiness, you know. So he thought maybe that's where that question is coming from. So I don't know, that's the case or not. So Geshe is explaining that here, which is I think quite insightful actually. Yeah. So when we say Tende Tongbe Thön, the meaning of dependent arising as emptiness, what it really means is that we use dependent arising as a reasoning to establish that whatever x, y, z of intrinsic existence. Are you with me? So that's the meaning. You know, we use dependent arising as a reasoning to establish emptiness itself. Okay. But when we say the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising, it's a little more complicated and not as easy as it is. You know, because even if you realize emptiness as it is, you know, it's not necessary that you have realized the meaning of emptiness as dependent arising. So the meaning of emptiness as dependent arising means that because nothing could exist in and of itself, so therefore, because things do exist, right, come into existence, go out of existence, because they are contingent upon conditions, cause and conditions. So that's the meaning of emptiness as dependent arising. So that comes later, isn't it? So we can realize emptiness through the reason of dependent arising, but let's say we realize the emptiness, but we haven't realized still the meaning of emptiness as dependent arising, because that meaning has to be because nothing could exist in of itself. It's non-affirming negative reality. That's why things are dependent nature. They are contingent upon, right, for their existence. So I hope that answers the there.
Yeah. Okay. The word that Geshe said that caught my attention is spontaneity, and the reason that caught my attention is I've been chewing on the issue of volition. Volition, what's driving?
Right.
An ordinary person, I'm not talking about what's driving an ordinary person to go on the path, for example.
Right.
See, I just lost my thought.
So now you answered yourself?
No.
Okay.
No, there's no clarity.
Yeah.
It's just because it's like I'm
Okay.
trying to bring it here to
Okay.
get a word for it. So one of the things I'm chewing on is, okay, when you look at self-sufficient and substantial self, that's actually not a problem. So what's driving this person to go on the path or to do any kind of action? We can say that, ordinary people, even non-practitioners, what's driving it is karma. There's basically this continuity from previous actions and thoughts and blah, 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 and it just is continuing down. So that's what's kind of driving the thing. And for Buddhas, what's moving the mind, maybe, is rather than driving at this point, is we say compassion. That's the word. We say compassion. Compassion at that point is not an emotion. I guess it refers to more of a network of movement. When we go to the intrinsic self, this becomes more interesting. This is where I was like, huh, okay. So when we're looking at the self-sufficient substantial self, okay, that becomes actually kind of clear. So what appears is the solidity. That's what appears to the person, right? The solidity of a person, of an I, and then that I has a drive. But with intrinsic self, what is appearing really is more of a narrative. The narrative is appearing, and then we think, oh, the narrative refers to something intrinsic.
Okay.
If we let go that intrinsicness, then starts out, well, what's driving now? So let's take it. Let's get clarity about that first. What's driving when we're letting go of the intrinsicness of the self? What's driving it? What's driving?
What's driving what? Now we let go of the intrinsicness. So
You're driven to take this path, right?
Without that, so what drives the action? Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about a Buddha who has
Right,
compassion.
right.
They're
Our
driven by
level.
it. For ourselves, ordinary
Right.
people. If here's like I'm a nobody, ordinary person. I go, okay. If I just look at this internal narrative that says there's an I, and I go, okay, this is just an internal narrative. There isn't a referent object that's out there. There's an intrinsicness to whatever. It's just an internal. So what's driving? And this is where my attention got caught with the issue of the lineage. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something coming from that that's driving then now the practitioner to move forward. Because you no longer, you don't, I have the karma, but I want to let go being driven by the karma, wanting to look good and all that other karmic garbage. Letting that go. What's driving? So the issue of, let's say, energy or power or something pushing forward, the practitioner to move forward.
Without the intrinsic, if we let go of that, so what?
If you
drives
let
it?
go, what's driving it? So this is where the issue of the lineage sounds interesting. It's like, oh, maybe there's something coming from that's driving. Maybe it's not, we hear about things like the lamas, pulling you or things
So when
like
you
that.
say driving, is that volition we're talking about?
Yeah, the drive, the volition, that wanting to, that willingness to, the thing that gets you up.
Okay. So if I phrase your question this way, just
Yeah,
just
let's,
by now,
because I don't
if
have
we say,
clarity
let's
about
say,
it.
If we sort of, let's say, as ordinary people, let go this little bit of grasping intrinsicness,
Yes.
then what drives our whatever, right, practice, anything? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, and clearly, like, the textbook would be like bodhicitta, but then again, like, what's driving that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I got a little clarity on that now, more, I think. More condition this go the current devata the any sangya laya the sama lo talk about me about the beme to some the garwage sangya is about garwage taina ngaranzo the semjen pebal chebina namju ngaz lega the nyamle kadi semen kulon la rale de garwage kulon chen machine ako jutu go marwa so the ngaz tanda kaso ko kansa pebal sonda rangshin to be zimba de garwage 가르치네 nga 직 치고서 디 지마디기로 와게 부자당데 군노 차도로 와게 다 계세 지마디 팔때스 뢰베이나로 와게 랑시르베 지마디 팔 뢰베이나 파스테스 팔 뢰베이나로 와게 에는 가서 지다 레르 주고로 와게 냠레인 레르 주만 디 주주간데 군노로부터 가르쳐도 그래서다
그래서
다 랑신르베 지마디 팔 뢰버로 와
그래
지디 다 가서 지 레르 주고래 사고래 통고래 냠레 저고로 와게 디 죽죽은 디 단단히는 랑시르베 짐베기로 와게
그래
대등에서 와게 랑시르베 짐바들 해베이나 디 메베 쿨론으로 가르치게 가서 냠내 쳐야다 디가 쿨론 가르기 죽죽 그래서 다 남지야 닝제다 디네케서 멤버세로 와게
아니
다 가서 가서 레르 죽으로 와게 다 랑시르베 짐바 메베나 사고를 통고를 레르 죽으로 와게 이 죽죽은 쿨론으로 디 쿨론 만다르 셔로 와게
알라들다 유를 오셔서도 세하지마 그배 다저마서 강강가서 도저사야 두어가 강한 되바 여든 되자 영마르마 어떻게 되바 되자니
알아 되바 단다 대디고다
되바디 여든 되바 되자 가가 여러
노서
시로 배샤 되바 되자 이지바 되고 어디 저 더가 여디
알아 노서 I think this might answer your question. Actually, it's interesting. We somehow, through all that complication, I think Geshe got it. He said, looking at the arahats, right now they don't have the intrinsic grasping anything. But just like us, they need to eat, they need to do all kinds of actions. So what is the volitional part is called, that's the, we always talk about the, in English language, desire, deba, right? So desire doesn't have to be diluted desire, right? There could still be desire. That's what's happening. Arahats do not have attachment and these afflictive desires we have, but they still have the desire that they need to eat, they need to walk, they need to do all. So that is the kind of volition there, you know.
And if I were to bring in word other than volition, if I were to bring the word agency, and I don't know what that is,
Right.
how would we look at that? Because that's another, like I looked at it in terms of volition, I looked at it in terms of agency. And I remember His Holiness addressing it in one of his teachings but I can't remember what he said.
So give me an example of your agency, yeah.
Like, well, that is my question too. Like there's an, agency is like,
So how do you differentiate between your volition and agency? Yeah.
let's start there.
Yeah, tell me
do
that.
you have-
So that, give
No,
me an
I don't
example
have,
so
I
then
don't
can tell
have,
him, right?
I don't have clarity. I remember His Holiness bringing up the issue of agency. Like, I think, do you have a good word
Can
for
anybody
it?
think of
He doesn't
agency?
have a good word
I
for
see.
it.
Yeah, so I don't know how to
Yeah.
translate that.
Talent agency, is that what you're referring to?
No. Being an agent, like the person, that which gets up to do the action. So not the
Or being a
so
control.
not so much the
so like-
not so much the desire. Well, maybe the desire is the agency.
So you mean,
I think I know what you mean. I think agency is like your own will and your own call to follow the path, and then you have the karma, or what they just mentioned. Whenever somebody becomes into Buddhahood, you transfer on to your family lineage, right? So there's a difference between that and your own call, so your own agency to want to do it yourself.
agency is the sort of choice making, isn't it?
Yes, agency is your own agency, your
Right.
own choice
Right.
to do that.
It's not like deterministic. I have an agency, right? I want to go to Buddhahood, not to the liberation. Maybe I would just want to take a nap, right? That's my agency, you mean? Right. So, yeah. Okay.
Can I just add something? Well, so that desire and the agency is also another internal
Okay.
narrative.
Right. Narrative, right?
It's still an internal narrative.
Right.
So are we saying just the internal narrative drives itself? Is that what we're saying?
Okay.
No, maybe that's will answer my.
Say it again.
Are we saying that internal narrative is driving itself? It has its own continuum, and that's where lineage comes in, because you have like something that's
Let me try that.
it's
Let's see.
continuity.
Maybe sometimes Geshe is very smart and he figured it out, he'll give the answer. Sometimes we don't, so let's try, right? That one this is that again answer. Kibu pebal cha shaba that games when the deba digger wage. Chajambal in the Deja Yama deba digita, Sago or Kakuku or what. Chito in that again didn't answer Damga chase or wage. Deba Sito Garbananga didn't call this argument, this again said sure wage. So that debata Damga che di Peruria, the Damga che di Kana Yungo in us, so the Damga che or what. Other than that, the Tarbal document, Tamsi Chamber Damga che or what. The United under commercial attendant in a Karina.
다 거기 가지 돼서 다 삼로단에 가가지고 약을 가가지고 다 되게
Someday commercial because Geshe thought that maybe one of the things that he can talk about agency, what's affecting it, is our habitual thinking or the thoughts, right? Daily, whatever thought patterns we have, that's more likely to kind of affect our agency. We want to do, we want to go, something like that. You know, our thought patterns can, affect that.
So there's the law of inertia in physics. Object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Does that throw any light on it, young lady?
No, I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Which speaks to like continuity.
Could you use the mic so that our Dharma friends and the cyberspace feel they are part of us, right?
I found a Tibetan word for agency. It's a ngonsop le don. Ngonsop le don.
I'm not getting. Can you show me? Yeah.
Show him that.
Yeah, show that. Yeah. No, this doesn't work. This is all about representing, right? Because instead of you going there, somebody can represent you too, right? That's different. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it's just like I can go to the Congress. I send my secretary like, hey, that's that's not working. Yeah. Any other questions? Maybe one more. Yes, they go. Then I have a couple of announcements, a prayer request. Today monks
Okay.
are not here, so I'm doing everything, wearing too many hats.
A very quick question.
Sure. No, please.
So it makes perfect sense to me that absence of intrinsic existence, reality, and the perception of that is you would need that to become enlightened. And I've asked a few questions about bodhicitta online a few times, and you've answered every time, so thank you very much. But I'm still not unclear about bodhicitta, and if a person were to seek enlightenment through simply knowing that reality, if that's different from bodhicitta, which is seeking enlightenment for the benefit of sentient being.
Okay. So you want a clear, sure.
If there's a difference, yeah.
Sure. Hold the mic, so we'll get to your next question too. Quran condition this go again. That because of Sanje Koban Tabalaya Rovagan, Ranshin Drubet, Tony talk on Donna Mada Sanje, talking about the Quran Sevish Jumus are Rovagan. Then the Quran Karisha Chamas and other Namji, Changju Semchi or Rovagan. Changju Semki Kodan da. Bena Michi Rovagan, I Sanje Tabalia, Tony talk with the Tony Donna machine digger said the Changju Semarwas are Rovagan. The Sanje just the Dick decision was Changju Semgi, Koa de Ravage. Sanje Tandal, Tony talk with the said the Kebashki decision. Changju Semdi again, that is Shandian do Changju do Geshe Ravage. The Benangarajo was what the Sanje talk, Tony Thomas Digma, Tony talk with the land, Changju Sem Chagmaroge. This Chagmaroge. Or did can say
because Sanje.
Benangarajo again, Sanje will let Tony talk with those love again. I Tony don't do some Sanji and love the Changju Sem Chagamaroge. Chagamaroge. So that Changju Sem in the country school.
Changju Sem said Simultaneous of the Sanje talk was there. Sanje mother nine simultaneous don't see him and do say, Changju Sem was there.
In Tommy the Jago Java and touches from the child. Okay, so so Geshe saying is the bodhicitta that we say is really an attitude, right? It can be connected to emptiness, it doesn't have to be, right? Bodhicitta means that you have this aspiration seeking enlightenment for the sake of, right, the universe, all beings, isn't it? So that mindset itself is called bodhicitta. Now, if you feel like this, okay, I heard today that in order to be Buddha, I must realize emptiness. So I should realize emptiness, right? To be Buddha, that itself is not a bodhicitta. That's connecting the path to the goal, because bodhicitta has to be seeking enlightenment for the sake of others. So now if we combine that attitude with this one, so that's called integrating wisdom and method together, right? Integrating bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness together. So that's what needed, right? To go. Yeah, thank you. Yes.
So I have a quick question on a case where there's a yogi on the path of preparation, and they're in meditative equipoise, and they're meditating on emptiness.
Yeah.
So since at that stage they don't have, they still have subject object duality. So my question is do they have a mental image of the object? Does that yogi in that situation have a mental image of the object? That's my question.
Okay, sure. Thank you. That question is clear. Thank you. Pine condition I did this go again. Then the Jolambala Rawage. Jolamba nega nejo bajigi is Rawage. That Tony Lia Nyamsa Gomba in Rawage. Tony maybe Nyamsa in Bina. Then the Jolam nega solia Ninzi or Rawage. Ninzi or Nina or Rawage. Yes, Tony Lia Nyamsa chair the Tony de Caltanda Nina or Vesage. So the Tony Tunji Sade Mother Tony ran and Muslim Togo Madin Revesa. Jolamba Nyamshabat.
Really, that 제 돈이 무슨 도야 뭐 통지 샤고 제.
냠샤 나래 다 구단다 이게 니나 샤더로
냠샤이나 통지 뭐 무슨 도야 말고.
알니 the that yero. Yes. Yeah. That's right. The one, the yogi or the practitioner or the path of preparation who is in this deep meditation, absorption or emptiness, still we have dualistic appearance. So that means the image of the emptiness, genetic image, the emptiness appearing, not the emptiness itself. So there's a dualism. It's not a non-conceptual engagement with emptiness. You are still on the path of preparation. The emptiness, the concept of the emptiness is still there. It's not the non-conceptual. The concept of emptiness is still there.
It's not non-conceptual, yeah.
It's not conceptual.
But would the image of the object for that yogi?
Yeah, that emptiness. Let's say if that yogi is on emptiness, right? The object is emptiness, right?
Yes.
So the conceptual image, in other words, that yogi is still perceiving or processing emptiness conceptually. There is a dualism.
Okay, so that image for that particular yogi would be different from another yogi who's in the same situation? For the...
Or be same, right.
Just-
Jolam ke rimba yorwa, jolam kang liya ne de ne jaba sangma logi tanda di tonyi liya bena kombina tonyi ya kasada ke chadön dirung zina jorwa. Di chikpa chikyang re ya manda be kheba yungena kane na sa.
그게 이제 저놈의 내 가가 돈이 거면 제가로
La.
돈이 공개 뭐 잡으려지.
Ma de tonyi ki ko namba chadö kang liya tanda jirwa ke chadön dirung de zimba di chikpa
그치
chikyang.
말다.
Ina der sega kheba yungena.
새로 해다 지상 가다 소소 제 새로 개발 때 요새 좀
Yeah, Geshe said, because of some individual differences or depending on so many things, in terms of clarity of what emptiness is, there might be some difference. But all of them are engaging with emptiness conceptually. There's no difference there. Right? Yeah.
There's no image for emptiness.
Right. Okay. All right. Right. The conceptual image, yeah, conceptual image.
That's non-conceptual. There's no non-conceptual.
So to be continued, sorry, we have a number of announcements today. Our Geshes are not here, and then prayer requests. First, let me do in Tibetan for Geshe. Today, Geyang, Rinpoche of the person, Seta Che, the Tume Jamju Shue, and the Yovage, teaching Yel Shishoski. Seta did this again, 30 Chukji, Salhakbala ya talk it is a wage. 야 다리 쪽송을 양한도 계실라 담바데기 공조키기도 하게 얘네 안저 로사데 다리 좁게래도 하게 쇼게 nga바네 팀바바도 인사 안데네 산에 양 긴디버서 지기사 데네 되게네 된딩을 라가던 디그레시셔 로하게 아 데네 통면 잠주슈에 디 첸데 빌 스티븐스가 도로하게 공로 굽주 공이를 샤도와 데 잠주 나라나스 따체란 덴바 Dore Wells against the Cotes Tebo Samarwa, Jamju Naronas, then Anjo Kiruji Ajarisha, Dale Govlex Arwa, Mora Italy, Kesa Rome Yorwage, Rome ya Chalakumasho and Sarwa, same day it's a day to mention Naronas. Okay, so announcements first. Wednesday, February 11th is the regular talk offering, Gana Chakra. Then on February 13th, Friday, will be our Geshe-la's Parinirvana anniversary talk again. The New Year Tibetan Losar will be February 18th, Wednesday morning. We will do our early event from 5 to 7. And then after that, if you need to go to work or something, you can. But if you have time and you want to still participate, the next session prayers that monks will do, so you are welcome to hang out and do that. So those are the announcements. I have prayer requests for deceased Bill Stevens, who passed away at the age of 92 on February 3rd due to health. So please pray for him and others we can think of. Prayers for healing. Dore Wells has some health issue. And then Deborah Galvac's sister, Dale Gavalek, I think in Rome got robbed by people, so is in distress. So please pray for finding the things and that. So then any other prayers we can think So we will do the Avalokiteshvara prayer and dedication first for the deceased, and then we will do the Medicine Buddha prayer and dedication for the well-being of the living. Chādong kōlūn gyōbē gyāwō dōng jēndōng gyāwā sāngbē sāngyē dōng kānglā kāngdū tēlā tēt zhēm jēndē sēlā chāngzē lō ommāni pēmē hōng. Ommāni pēmē hōng rē gyāwā ndēyē nyōdō dā jērē sēwān rūpjō nē rōwā chī yāma tēyē sālā gui bārā shō tōjē kuñlā nyōmbē chōmdēn dē sēnzāng tēbē ngiandū dōngē sē dōksō nē sē sāngyē mēngyā bīndū yē chāzē lō om namu bhagavade bhekajē guru bīndū yā tabaranzā yā tadangādā yā arahade samya sambuddha yā tēyē tā om bhekajē mā bhekajē ranzā samukade yē so tēyē tā om bhekajē mā bhekajē samukade. Tēdāṁ bhekajē bhekajē mā bhekajē ranzā samukade yē so hāng gyāwā dēyē nyōdō dā mēmbē gyāwō rōwā jīgyā mā rīwā dēyē sālā gui bārā shō. Prayer booklet. Lō rī gyāzī vīchūng pēkā dē gyāsāṁ pōngbē chūdō mēmbā shēn dēmbā zīnglā wāngdō jīchū Tangnian Chogun Chola Sowa de Mawa Dame Gunjian Donga de Kangri Jongso Ninda Senza Jamgun Jawa Nieba Yapse Je Tangson Tezi Mabe Sheba Tenzin Shebe Yingon Zebe Je Sheje Nigun Changju Denju Longdo Damje Bebe Beyuan Je Duja Jazu Gundo Shabde Tesa Guangdang Cheze Zombe Yongzo Yure Tobe Nyage Longri Tejen Nebe Bedenba Tobden Kangri Dabo Shabde Donang Kongmen Zeba Namda Gun Dendang Robe Lundro Jumi Chebe Tenleje Kesan Duje Dundo Shabde Chizun Lame Tuje Melanda Kesan Duje Dendang Zame Chozong Todo Jido Domba Chida Memben Dungun Lun Sho Ranjan Shinge Gombo Tseba Men Zodo Namje Geyun Dharma Chozo Zeye Lazo Tamje Dade Mishi Choge Mudu Tubden Chidang Losan Jawa Ye Shiru Tenban Zimbe Beyu Tadu Duje Yongwe Shenye Jo Yangdu Ninje Ongbo So Jiden Sungwe Chana Beme Jo Denbe Zawa Soso Taba Namda Sudin Yangda Langba Ye Losa Genden Bedo Shabden Tujun Gyaltsen Nonzi Yangbe She Samjo Namje Changzin Junbe Gomjun She La Sungju Debe De Denbe Ngada Chenbo Shabden Chebe Dongwa Gowa Bojo De Junbe Rilan Siwe Bomshe Zhenbe Dunden Leishe Tangza Zhu Kedu Xinyin Chenpo Shabden Kebe Langdo Gushe Zeta Ze Zhenbe Chara Niezu Tangsa 상배 대제 리군 이셰노 숨된 신인 전부 샵대 대상 로라 제베 된대제 면종 다제 상매 세제 랍젠 젠제 된대 배샤와 젠대 신인 전부 초존 교와 세제 진라다 도된 담전 송면 소나 다자 화상 다베 된배도 지당 论著说常住生着人波者马界巴南解决者业瓦娘巴灭瓦光内共同陪瓦说东尼大瓦人波者马界巴南解决业瓦娘巴灭瓦光内共同陪瓦说沙西北京就是没多长瑞拉临时年的延巴的上界行动没得 如果能到新了就把说抗日热为国为新干所偏袒的话马律中为现在是往定人家做下边谁的报道研究及一他们古肉热他们你让大家面叫我滚到养大拉满的对面去接白了龙居 사다 람제 연대 라조 네 도제 창게 고반유도 쇼